Anybody that can consistently play at their own pace and put up numbers, it's a great player. I like the way he's playing. I like what Chauncey is doing.
When I hear people say, oh, the NBA is boring, I go, you're watching the same teams. Because if you put on the Detroit Pistons right now.
Oh, stop it. They're boring too.
No.
Bro, 4 games under 500.
Nope.
The worst person you know just made a great point. It's something that I would never say about Shaq because I really do want to like him, but he says the most idiotic things that you will ever hear from someone who is paid to watch, analyze, and talk about basketball. He's kind of like the basketball version of Kanye West, except Kanye West says some pretty evil things, while Shaq just discriminates against big men. And I guess he hates guards too. He really does not like Kate Cunningham. He might be the first basketball analyst to not like basketball. If you didn't know, TNT will no longer be showing NBA games on their network. However, Inside the NBA, featuring Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley, Kenny the Jet Smith, and Ernie Johnson, will still continue. It'll just be broadcasted by ESPN and ABC, but it'll still be produced by TNT. The news broke that all 4 members would remain on the team still, with Shaquille O'Neal, I believe, being the last person to officially sign. And for a majority of sports enjoyers, this is amazing. I mean, all 4 guys have great chemistry and are really funny. 3 of them are former NBA players, and 2 of them are Hall of Famers. So obviously, they have credibility to talk about basketball. There's some really cool gimmicks like Kenny racing to the board and the broadcast showing tweets of fans reacting to what just happened in the previous segment, and they all make fun of Shaq and Chuck and all that. And it is very easily the best halftime show out of all the nationally broadcasted NBA halftime shows. Not only to most people, but to me as well. However, if you ask Twitter, and don't get me wrong, Twitter is a terrible and miserable place, and a majority of things said on there you should not be taken seriously. But if you ask NBA Twitter, they hate it. And they think that the crew is funny and all that, but the basketball analysis on the show is terrible. And I could agree to that. But the blame of this is not split evenly. I mean, if you count all of the times I've had to raise my eyebrow, drop my jaw, just start laughing out loud because of how bad the takes are, I would say that 0% of the time, it's Ernie Johnson. He never really has a bad take, but he doesn't really give his takes too often during the show. Maybe 10% of the time, Kenny the Jet Smith, he's pretty calm, but he will say some crazy things out of nowhere. And then Charles Barkley, probably about 30% of the time. But I'd say the remaining 60% of the time, Shaquille O'Neal, whenever there is a bad take, 60% of the time, it is Shaquille O'Neal. And the worst part is, from the looks of it, it looks like Shaquille O'Neal's only twice as bad as Charles Barkley, and then only like 6 times as bad as the rest of the crew. No. This is just the frequency of when it happens. When we talk about how bad the takes are when they are said, Shaq has it the worst. Like, I swear, every time I hear him talk about something, it's the stupidest thing you'll ever hear. I love Barkley, and even though sometimes it is a bit hypocritical of him, he really is advocate about not just talking about the big 3 teams of the Celtics, the Lakers, and the Warriors. Like, he's actually an advocate of watching other teams. Shaq, on the other hand, will outwardly say that he does not care for any other teams, including the Pistons, who are a playoff team, and just dramatically lie about their record, talking about how they're 7 games under 500. The number 1 team in both fast break points and dunks, he says it's boring. But yeah, he also hates when teams take too many threes. So it doesn't make sense to me. And he had no idea who their coach was. And it wasn't like a brain lapse or he just forgot or something like that. No, he was just outwardly wrong. Like, everyone has those moments. That was not a moment. That was just him not being informed. And the funniest part about all of this is it's not like Shaq's just there to get paid. He's just there to, clock in, clock out. He doesn't really like basketball. He's just doing it. No, he has a whole other podcast where they talk about basketball. So you'd think that he likes basketball. Shaq has multiple platforms just to be bitter. He hates on Zion Williamson for leading his team to a win with a 20-point triple-double. Second one in a month span, and he's hating on him because he's not scoring enough points. There's a reason he has 10 assists. Not only is he a great passer for the power forward position, but guys can't guard him one-on-one. You have to send a second defender because no single defender can guard Zion. And what's crazy is I don't even think 2 defenders can guard Zion. But if you are in Zion Williamson's position, and I might need to make this its own video, but why would you go and drive on 2 to 3 guys if you have a teammate open and there's no kind of playoff hope that you're fighting for? Like, why risk your body when you're already injury prone if you're a great passer and you can hit a shooter in the corner? Like, you're winning the game. Like, how do you hate on that? It's ridiculous. And by the way, Shaq, for having to deal with all his injuries, 25 points per game in the calendar year is pretty impressive scoring-wise, if you ask me. That Shaq video of him hating on the Detroit Pistons for absolutely no reason is exactly what LeBron James meant by the older generation just loves to hate on the new generation of basketball. Such a shame. NBA media needs to be better. And this is why I'm making this video. As entertaining as this TNT crew is, very soon, especially when LeBron James retires, we need to start pushing the new media. I want to hear people who love basketball talk. I want to hear excitement in the voices of the media and the broadcasters. And the new media, while most of them are younger, it doesn't have to just be guys who are super young. Tim Legler is a great voice for basketball. Kevin Garnett, whenever I hear him talk about basketball, just talks about the young guys and how good they can be. And I'm wondering, maybe in 5 to 6 years when Paul George retires, if he doesn't want to do the podcast, can he actually be an official media member? Or even guys who don't have a professional background, formerly known as Through the Wire, Numbers on the Board, was just 4 guys talking basketball in a basement, and now they have their own show on ESPN. And they got this privilege from the passion that they show when talking about the game, not just because they played professional basketball earlier in their careers. The steps are slowly being taken, but you can't walk up 80% of the stairs and say that you made it to the second floor. We have to finish the job. And quick plug, and it's not a 60-second sponsored ad, so please don't skip it. I really love watching and talking about basketball, hence the YouTube channel and this YouTube video. So me and my friend just started our basketball podcast again. Talk yours. Tune in if you want to listen to people who actually really enjoy the sport. And I'm not saying that I want Shaq or Chuck to just hype up every single young prospect and act like everything's good and just never talk negative about anybody. That's not what I want. But in my opinion, right now, the hate is so forced. I mean, just look at this tweet from Dom2K. Shaq broadcasting starter pack. Point guard. Bol is Wemby without opportunity. Shooting guard. I don't watch insert interesting team here. Small forward, how many rings? Power forward, I need more from him. Center, I hate Dwight. Now, we already covered shooting guard and power forward pretty much, so let me break down the rest. The Wemby and Bol comparisons, just on both sides, really piss me off. Starting with Wemby, you are really disrespecting him by comparing him to a guy who has gotten DNPs this season. And that's the future of the league that you're covering. On the other end, you are ironically throwing a very accurate alley-oop pass to NBA fans to tear down Bol. He didn't ask for this. Just because he's 7'2" and his father's Manute Bol doesn't mean that we have to have these super high all-star expectations for him in year 7. And I know that I've made a video on Bronny, but that was like draft day. If Bronny has a Bol type career and we're still talking about him in year 7, if I'm doing that, just hate me. Now let's talk about ring talk with Shaq. I love the jokes that Shaq makes with Charles Barkley about asking him how many rings he has versus how many Shaq has. I'm not this, NBA nerd. I don't like to have fun. I think it's very funny. But the problem is Shaq lets it get into his psyche, and that's the reason that he doesn't want to watch teams like the Pistons. He's so obsessed with championships that watching a team that has no chance to win a championship is just like the worst thing to him. And I would understand it if Shaq was right the first time and the Pistons really were 7 to 8 games under 500 and somehow they were a 5 seed, then yeah, sure, you shouldn't want to watch them. But the fact that they are so fun and so good, I don't get it. Like, he has a job and he works for TNT. He does not have free time to watch rebuilding teams on League Pass. So like 50% of NBA teams already should be on his ban list of not watching them. But the Pistons should not be one of those teams. So that was my tangent. I have no final words because, to be honest, this video is going to solve nothing. I'm pretty sure Shaq just signed like a 10-year contract with TNT. So here's a funny tweet. This is Shaq, but instead of Twitter, his platform is national TV. About to skim tonight's box scores and argue with people who watched the whole game. Accurate, funny, and relatable. However, in the link in my description will be my podcast. I will try and not to talk about any basketball that I have not actually seen. I'm not just going to be looking at box scores because box scores are like women. They are very misleading. Goodbye.